Welcome, everybody. Glad you could join us. Um, my name is Jaisal Noor. I'm with my colleague Linda Shaw. We're filling in for this week's guest instructor, Jen Brandell. You all watched her excellent sessions, her two videos and examples she shared about engagement. And so she wasn't able to make it today, unfortunately, but we are going to do the best to answer your questions, and I'm sure there's going to be questions we can't answer. So we'll get those questions to Jen, and we'll follow up with you. But we're just excited to have you all here. By last count, I saw there's 955, I think, people signed up for this course, which is amazing. We know there's elections happening in dozens of countries. And so these topics, these questions we're tackling are really central to journalism and the role and the potential it has right now. And these aren't easy topics. We know there's no easy answers. Linda and I's expertise is in solutions journalism. We have some experience in engagement too. But we know that it's never easy, and it's never, there's always challenges, and that's why we're here to help you out. Jen has created some excellent resources for you all to use. And, this class is asynchronous. So even if you fall behind, even if you have questions, do not worry. We will help you get caught up. And, the other thing I wanted to say is that, Solutions Journalism Network put together this course, and we wanted to have engagement on there. We wanted to have transparency on there because we know that the best solution stories, the strongest solution stories, which we'll get to next week, are really embedded in transparency and engagement and really rooted in the concerns of the community. And that's how solutions journalism can really unlock its potential. And so please enter your questions in the chat and we will get to them. And I guess, Linda, it'll be easier for me if you can, because I'm on my phone right now. I'm at an airport, if you guys can't tell. If you read the questions and you can share them, that would be fantastic. And so I'm not seeing any questions yet. Linda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, as Jaisal said, my name is Linda Shaw. I'm also with the Solutions Journalism Network, and along with Jaisal, have been working on our democracy work for quite some time, and have partnered up, as he said, with Jen Brandell at Harkin and Lynn Walsh and Joy Mayer at Trusting News, because we think all these skills together are a very powerful way to provide an alternative to horse race coverage.
Yeah, and as a reminder, this session will be recorded. So if you have to jump off or you miss something, don't worry. The recording will be posted later on. So please, if you have any questions, post them in the chat. Linda will be able to share them. And there's the discussion section too online. And I was reading some of the questions that were being posted, and they were fantastic. And it really seems like you all are doing some really interesting and important work, and we are here to help. So please send us your questions. And we know people are still joining. There's about 23 people on here right now. We had a bit more. We had a bit more last week, so we'll continue to welcome people as they join. And so I'm gonna.
Yeah, no questions in the chat yet. Just also wanted to start taking the questions from the discussion section.
Yeah. So,
or if any of you asked one of the questions, put one of the questions in the discussion section, raise your hand or something so we know we can get to that one.
So this is a question from Lori Sefton, who says, the question is about coordinating with other news platforms. Lori says, "Hi, WBEZ is the only NPR radio station I know of who bought a newspaper, Chicago Sun-Times, for those who live outside of Chicagoland. Logistically, how does this work, especially with creating and sustaining community involvement?" That's a really, really great question. Linda, I know you will have some thoughts about that, but I know from my experience working with the Baltimore News Collaborative, and SJN has supported over 15 news collaboratives, that first of all, it's really important to get all the newsrooms on board with that effort, and to really have a discussion about how you can harness your assets and what you bring to the table, including your audience. And so the Chicago Sun-Times, for example, might have a different audience than WBEZ, but bring that to the table. And obviously, Chicago Sun-Times is print and digital, and so you can put in audience engagement questions, put in your, have your mission statement, FAQ, engagement questions, solution stories in print. You can have them in digital, and you can have them on your radio station too. And so I think that I think that's what's really important. You bring all your assets to the table and making sure you're reaching every audience that you have. Linda, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would just add that, you don't have to do everything all at once either, right? That you can focus on or decide to focus on a particular segment of your audience or an audience that you'd like, and do some targeted engagement around that audience, and take one step at a time. It's hard to reach everybody at once. I bet you'd agree with that, Jaisal, right?
Yes, absolutely. You want to start small and celebrate the victories when they happen, because this can be overwhelming, this can be difficult, and make a plan and just go step by step. And that you don't want to overwhelm yourself, you don't want to get burned out, you don't want to not create lofty goals and not succeed, because that's gonna make it seem more difficult. So we have another question from Karen Llewellyn. Karen mentioned she might not make the live discussion. So they say, much rich information for communities generally, but millions in our communities access content uniquely due to living with disability. Thoughts on ensuring we're equally engaging that population? We'll post an example of such successful coverage later, but for now, I'm interested in your thoughts. So that's a really good question. And Linda, do you have any thoughts on that? And that might be a question that Jen, with her expertise in engagement, is best suited to answer, perhaps.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say the same thing. Jen has been in this work, as you guys know, for a very long time, and I'm sure she has some examples to share. I don't have any personally. Do you, Jessel?
I don't off the top of my head, but I would say that that's a really important question. It's a really great question. We will definitely have Jen answer that and provide some examples. So I know just seeing examples can be really helpful. But thank you so much for sharing that question. There's not really a question, but Elizabeth Gathu says she found the insights to audio engagement particularly enlightening. And it was just a request to have downloadable slides that we can print for reference. So I think we should be able to do that. I think Jen did make the slides available. So I think if you download them, you can convert them to like PDF, but I can follow up on that. All right. So this was an interesting question from Ina Dubinsky. And so the title of this is "Don't Become a Story." So this issue was raised in last week's session too. Not really a question necessarily, but they say it's important for journalists to learn as much as possible about candidates and be versed on voting and electoral processes. However, it is hardly ethical or appropriate to include personal beliefs and experiences in any stories. Don't become a story is one of the rules for ethical journalism. Journalists need to interview people with various backgrounds and walks of life to assure their reporting is comprehensive, balanced, and unbiased. So not a question, but I guess a comment or a suggestion, which I would say I would agree with that you, as a journalist, you generally don't want to be the story, but I think there is space to share experience and to share your own point of view for transparency's sake. What do you think, Linda?
I think it's a really good point too. And actually, I think of engagement as sort of the opposite of bringing yourself into the story. I think the way that Jen talks about engagement is a way to really, make sure you understand very deeply, as much as possible, what your audiences, at least pieces of your community are thinking, and to bring and wanting information wise, and bringing that into your reporting. So I'm a former print reporter and editor, so I don't put myself in stories personally. I know some of that is changing, but I would say that engagement doesn't take you in that direction. I don't know, Jessel, do you agree with that?
I think you're absolutely right. Um, yeah, and actually, as you said, Linda, the whole point of engagement is to not work on our assumptions, which can be right or can be wrong, but to let your audience guide what you're doing. So, yeah, I think you said it. I think you said it perfectly. It is the opposite of centering yourself. It is it is really coming at this work in a very humble way and saying that we don't have all the answers, but we know that the audience we're serving has that have insight. They have their own experiences, and we've along with engagement, we found that those kind of stories, those kind of solution stories, are the most powerful solution stories as well. So I see the chat lighting up a little bit. I don't want to click on it because my camera will get off skew. But Linda, do you mind sharing?
There is a question in the chat from, and apologize if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Wanja. Is that correct? Question about objectivity. How do we define and practice this solutions journalism? How do we define and practice this in the solutions journalism that centers community? Why don't you take a stab at that, Jessel?
That's a great question. So, I think, and I think part of, I hope everyone got to watch our interview, our segments, our introductory segments that were posted a little late, but are available now, about what it means to be pro-democracy, and the interview with Saba Long of Atlantic Civic Circle, as well as Brandon Tensley of Capital B News, because we, first of all, it's not our role as instructors and as trainers to tell you, to say you have to be objective or to say you have to take certain positions. We think that's really up to every newsroom and every journalist to decide. However, there is a growing movement that's sort of questioning that traditional approach to objectivity and the traditional thinking around objectivity, and saying that journalists, the idea of being neutral, that we have to sort of rethink what it means to be neutral in the age of anti-democratic movements, anti-democratic tendencies, and as journalists who derive their profession and their work from the First Amendment, right, from democracy, can we really be neutral on that question? That's not something that we can answer for any of you, but that's something that we encourage you all to interrogate and to think about in your newsrooms, or as journalists with your colleagues, and to really think about what that means for you, and whether in this day and age, whether being objective in that traditional sense, giving an equal say to both sides, if that is really the best use of your time, or is it the best use of your time to be pro-democracy? And is that the most effective thing for you to be pro-democracy, to say that democratic values are important and that's something that you agree with, and that to say that, look, like, as journalists, that's how we derive our profession, from that First Amendment. And as Columbia Journalism School Dean Jelani Cobb, notes that in the U.S. Constitution, the only profession referenced are journalists, right? So journalists do play an important and irreplaceable role in democracy, and we have to make sure that we're living up to those duties that come with being in a democracy, and that's holding politicians accountable and giving people the information they need to be informed participants, whether it's at the ballot box or whether it's in some of the myriad of other ways that it's possible to be engaged in democracy. And actually, Saba Long talks about this, and Brandon Tensley talk about this much more eloquently than I can. So I really recommend listening to that interview. But they talk about in their voter guides, it's not just about who to vote for, it's about how to get engaged. Like how do you give testimony at a hearing, right? Those are the kind of things that are essential to democracy, and things that I think it's important for journalists to at least consider. Linda, your thoughts?
I was just going to add another plug to, if you haven't gone back and watched those videos that got added late, please do. They are really great, and we're sorry they weren't available to you from the beginning. I think you really covered that question well, Jessel, and we have a couple more that have come in.
Okay.
Sabrina Halverson says she works for a radio network and is also syndicated on other networks and all across the nation. And she says online engagement is the best way for her to engage. And are there tips for making that as effective or nearly as effective as in-person engagement? Interested, open to ideas on long distance engagement.
Great question. Yeah. So I will, again, this is a question I will jot down, and we will get Jen to weigh in, because I know she'll have some really powerful insight. I can talk from my own experience with the Baltimore News Collaborative, where we're doing an engaged, we're doing what we're training, we're doing what we're talking about in this session, where we're creating a voter guide based on voter engagement, specifically for young people. And we did that, even though it's locally based in Baltimore, we did that entirely online, just using a Google form and sending it out through our 5 partner newsrooms and our 1 community partner, and linking to that in every news organization's newsletters, in their social media posts, dropping mentions in podcasts. And we've partnered with Morgan State University, and a student there had me print out flyers with our survey, and she posted them all over her campus. So there's ways to sort of link the two and use the assets we already have, whether they're your stories. You can say, hey, go to our website. We want to hear from you at the end of your radio story. Go to our, and you can say, if you say go to our website for more information, you can embed your survey very simply in your website, in your stories, to get that feedback.
Yeah, online engagement and in-person engagement have different strengths and weaknesses. And again, yes, we'll ask Jen for some, I'm sure she'll have some great tips on this, but I can speak from my own experience as well. I mean, actually engaging online is a way to bring people together from, a bigger geography than you can in person, to bring more people together at one time. And I think there are a lot of ways to bring the same kind of feeling you get in person from actually interacting with others through the use of breakout rooms or other that's probably the primary way to make that kind of engagement feel more like in person. I've seen really successful examples of using online engagement to have difficult discussions over tough issues. There's an organization called Spaceship Media that does that very well in the US. They work in the US, and they brought together a number of years ago now, Clinton voters from Alabama. Wait. Trump, I think Trump supporters from Alabama and Clinton supporters from California in a productive discussion around healthcare. So some of those methods, I think, if you guys could look up Spaceship Media and see that, they do some outstanding work.
And I would just add, one lesson we learned is that make sure to collect contact information, because to complete that engagement loop, you need to follow up with the people you engage with, so it's not extractive, and you show them how you're using their information. And those are people that you can potentially sign up to your newsletters, can give you more. After that initial engagement, you can send them the stories you make, and you can continue to complete that feedback loop, and to show them that you're listening. And that's a really good way to build a strong, loyal audience.
So another question here is, and I'm not sure I get this one, Jessel, maybe you will. How to navigate collaborating on public interest initiatives with organizations who are highly competitive with your organization. How do you bring your full self? And this may have to do with collaboration, Jessel, so you might be a good one. How do you bring your full self when your intellectual properties may be exploited?
That's a really tough question. And yeah, maybe the person who asked that question can clarify and expand a little bit. But if I'm yeah, and I it sounds, Linda, like you're right, like that question is specifically around collaboration. And so what I would say is the principle of collaboration is to um the principle of journalism collaborations like SJN has supported are really to go is to put the competitive nature aside. We have this as journalists, we have this super competitive tendency. We have to be the first ones to break the story. We have to get the story out first. We have to do a better story than everyone else. But we found that through collaboration and working together and putting aside that competitiveness, instead of having 5 outlets or a dozen outlets doing the same story a dozen different ways, that you can actually make a better product if you work together and you combine your forces. And instead of doing 5 quick stories on a topic, working together and to go deeper and to really go beyond that surface level reporting and spend time in a community or explore solutions or do deep engagement, things that are hard to do if it's one reporter. But if you have a team of reporters, you can work on them better. And so one thing that's important when you're collaborating is to have an MOU, have an understanding of how you're going to work together. Who retains the you mentioned intellectual property, who retains the right and control of that. In a collaboration, it should be everyone. So you're not competing or fighting over those assets, that they're all done together and are for everyone, for everyone to use together. And there can also be caveats that, let's say, like, I'm breaking a story, I want to be able to publish that first, and that's totally fine. But that should be something that you all agree on. It's something that you come to agreement on together. So I think I'm answering your question, but if not, we're happy to share more. And we have
please clarify if it didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and we in the notes we send out afterwards, I will send out we have a guide for collaboratives that SJN helped create from the experiences of our work supporting collaboratives, and they actually really answer a lot of these stories. Another example of a great collaborative is Resolve Philly, the Great Salt Lake Collaborative. Brought together. They have a video. We'll send that out. A great video showing how skeptical their members were, but we're able to overcome that skepticism, put aside their competitive nature, and really work together to do really powerful, groundbreaking work. And those are examples in the U.S., but I'm sure that there's other examples that we can point you to internationally as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you're working collaborative around an issue, as Jaisal has said, it's not like you're sharing everything. You still have, your areas of expertise that, you're not sharing with, you're not necessarily sharing everything, all your content, all your work with who you're collaborating with, right, Jaisal?
Absolutely. You want to make that very clear ahead of time, so there's no confusion and no issues later on. And what's great is that SJN has helped support 15 collaboratives, and so a lot of the lessons have already been learned and are available to learn from. So please shoot me a message, and we can connect you with those resources that we have and that are really powerful.
There's another question here in the chat about the press coverage during the last presidential election in the U.S. and its mistakes, and sort of wanting to deconstruct why the press did not alert Americans more about the anti-democratic danger. Yeah, that's probably a discussion that could take a whole hour all by itself.
At least,
I would
yeah.
say, I would answer in part by saying we're sitting here today because and we're far from the only ones to think this, but that the horse race approach to coverage is not serving the U.S. public well, and probably was part of the reason, part of the mistakes that were made in the U.S. press coverage of the last presidential election. And what we're hoping you all will do will explore a new, this alternative way of really working to better inform your audiences, working more directly with them to understand their information needs, and to fulfill your mission as journalists to be helpful to your communities, bringing them information through solutions journalism that can help them solve the problems, not just identify the problems. So I'm sure, hopefully this is sounding familiar now that you're somewhat through the course. What would you add to that, Jessel?
Yeah, I would say, check out those, as we mentioned before, those introductory sessions about horse race coverage, about the evidence we know that exists, showing the harm it causes to audiences and to newsrooms and journalists. And yeah, exactly what we're talking about, having journalists compete to cover the two major political parties as equal sides and have the audience as spectators. What that does is it removes the discussion of the stakes, what's at stake, not just who's winning, right? That's Jay Rosen's Citizens Agenda. And so by stepping back and looking at, the if you're covering just the polls and who's ahead, that's that's a full-time job. Entire newsrooms devote themselves to covering that, and then there's no space to step back and take a look at what the stakes are for our democracy. What the broader trends are. What impact could these elections have on our democracy itself? And so that's, again, as Linda said, that's why Solutions Journalism Network, Harkin, Trusting News, and scores of other organizations, news outlets are trying to help journalists take a different approach. This, horse race coverage has been orthodoxy, but it doesn't have to be that way. We know the alternative will not be easy, but that's why we created this course, to walk you through the steps along the way that it takes to really build a strong, transparent, engaged, solutions-focused election plan. And we know the election's coming up in the US. Other countries have already had elections this year, but it's not too late to start this approach.
Absolutely. Another question, a couple questions just came in. I'm just reading through those. Rosa Morales says she's partnering with Latino and LGBTQ youth in Lansing, Saginaw, and Detroit, Michigan, to produce some of their best ideas for young voter outreach and also involve naturalized citizens. She's finding that disinformation is thriving among some of these communities, and the use of AI to corrupt outreach messages to the at-risk voters is making her job much harder. Please comment, suggest strategies I can use to get through this malevolent culture.
Wow.
Wow, there's a lot there. Sorry for those challenges. That's challenging.
Yeah. Incredible challenges, incredible work you're doing. And yeah, we've actually worked with a few organizations that are addressing that same question. Connect to Arizona is working on engaging with communities on the border in Arizona and helping fight disinformation there. There's Fact Checado, I think. I might be saying it wrong. My Spanish isn't great, but there's a number of organizations that provide support to efforts such as yours to help fight disinformation, and also to bring the concerns of those of those marginalized communities to the forefront. And we can share some of those resources. But it sounds like you're taking up a huge challenge, but sounds like that's what's needed in your community. So congrats to you, and we'll follow up with some examples of some resources that you can use.
Yeah, and one of those resources will really, what's coming to mind for me is to look at Solutions Journalism Network, we have what's called our story tracker, which has tens of thousands of stories, solution stories on, the gamut. It runs the gamut in terms of topics. And I know there's some stories in there about how others have tried to address this issue. This is where solutions journalism can come into this picture. Who's addressing the challenges that you're facing, and who's making progress, and how are they doing that? That might be helpful both you individually, but it's also, even if you're a news organization that's not working on that directly, it's information that can help your community.
Yes, and I know we use some of those stories specifically around how people are fighting voter disinformation in our training. So I know they definitely exist. So if you just put in voting and disinformation on the story tracker, you should get a big number of results, and we can put a link in there as well in a follow-up email with some of those with a link to that search result, so you can get access to those. And yeah, and you know, and actually that's a great first step when you're going from engagement this week to solutions next week. Is look at what's in the tracker, because other outlets have most likely done a similar story, and it's a great way to see how other people have done it, and examples of, you know, positive deviance, what's working and what isn't. That's can be really inspiring as you're doing this work. We know it's not going to be easy, but we can help provide you those resources and connect you with other folks that are doing that work.
And Rosa, if you're not watching the chat, Rosa says, please, any of you on this call have suggestions, please add those in the chat too. I think that's a great idea. Please do. All right. I think we have one other question in the chat. Again, around objectivity. It brings to mind something I wanted to share that really helped me a couple of years back. That was actually had to do with a different subject, but it applies to election reporting and democracy reporting as well. It was a reporter, it came from a reporter who had been covering childhood lead poisoning in Cleveland, Ohio, where the childhood lead poisoning rate is really high. And the paper had done a number of stories, both problem-focused and solutions-focused, aimed at really challenging the city government there to do something about that problem. And she said in a seminar, you know, that she doesn't see herself as an advocate. She does see herself as, you know, doing fair reporting, but she has no problem advocating for the fact that children in Cleveland shouldn't be poisoned by lead. You know, that it's okay for journalists to advocate for something like that. I think the parallel here is, you know, if you're living in a democracy, that is something else that journalism, you know, doesn't have to shy away from. We encourage people to vote. We put information on where to find polling places. We explain the process. We try to give them information to be informed voters. I don't think there's, I don't know, Jaisal, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything to worry about promoting democracy writ large.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'll point back to the conversation, a final plug for that conversation with Saba Long and Brandon Tensley, because for example, there's the two outlets that cover African American communities. These conversations are not theoretical, right? These conversations are actually grounded in a struggle that's been ongoing in this country since its founding. What, you know, are we a democracy? How long have we been a democracy if the right to vote has only been guaranteed for the last half century, right? So we could talk much more about this question, but please go check out that interview. Go check out those introductory videos. We really dig into it with more time and space than we have here. I do love talking about this, but I know there's other questions as well.
Yeah, and please keep putting those questions in the chat. Or in the Q&A, one or the other. We're watching both. But Jaisal, I think there's time now for another one of the questions that came up before the session.
Cool. So this is a question from Lisa Cordasco. Hello, instructors. Thank you for introducing the concept of building trust and transparency with the audience. And in terms of engaging with audiences, it seems easy to do in the print medium, but how do listeners access this information while listening to radio news broadcasts? Is it something a newsreader should say at the beginning or end of a newscast? That's a really good question. I mean, I would say in the sign off, you know, put that in your sign off, you know, embed your transparency, embed your engagement, use those platforms, right? Your platforms are a key asset that every news outlet has. And so embed it in there and make it part of that workflow. And it could be as simple as, you know, referencing your website where you have this information listed or have the survey listed. Just plug people to go there if they want to learn more or if they want to get involved. I think that's a really simple way that I know every second counts on broadcast. You don't have any seconds to spare, but saying go to solutionsjournalism.org takes like what 3 seconds, not even 3 seconds to throw that in there. So that's one option.
Great. What else did people wonder about, Jessel?
Um, we don't have a question, but Vicky Sama really enjoyed the class so far. Thought the interviews have been really good. Um, Hashmin also enjoying the course so far, which is great to hear. Um, yeah, I think we have actually gone through. We have gone through the questions. I'm going to keep looking, while I'm going through and looking at these, um, we can offer a little preview of what we're going to learn in next week's module, which is why engagement is followed by solutions. Because as I said in the beginning, for those that weren't on the call, the best solution stories come from audience and community engagement. You know, you want to do stories that are relevant for your communities, and thinking of it in another way, the communities you're serving already know what the problems are, right? They don't need necessarily 5,000 words or a 30-minute broadcast on the challenges. Like, I live in Baltimore. People don't necessarily need to know about how they already understand very well how violence or housing inequality affects their communities, but they want to know what can be done about it, what's working in their communities and what's working elsewhere. And so audience engagement is really a key part of this. And I'm gonna see if there's any more questions, but
Yeah, while you're
have.
looking, I'll just
Yeah.
add that
Yeah.
I started doing audience engagement, I don't know, like 10 or so years ago, when I was working at the Seattle Times in Seattle, Washington, as part of a solutions focused project, and really saw the benefits of how powerful that can be, that engagement can be, and just remembering that once a news organization publishes or airs a story, the reporters and the editors are like, they're off on the next story. But to remember that for your audience, they're just coming to that story. And so part of engagement is staying aware of, and part of the conversation that happens as your audience is just coming fresh to that story. And that can also, help lead to other stories, but also just help you understand how to best serve your audiences, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Oh, something else might have shown up in the chat. Hang on. Oh, Shia, thank you. She's offering tools for fighting misinformation. Check out the chat here.
Awesome.
And how to signpost and label problematic content. Ooh, those both sound really good. I'm going to check those out for sure.
Yes, and the discussion forums allow you all to share resources. You might have really good resources that we haven't heard of, so please share them with your fellow students. I think we have gotten through all the questions. And we'll definitely link to more resources, and the resources we talked about. We can definitely link to them in the follow-up email that will be sent out.
Great. Anything else on anyone else's mind before we move to the preview of the next section of the course?
And I just wanted to remind everyone that this session is being recorded. So if you missed any of it, or you heard something on here that you didn't get a chance to write down, or you want to come back to, this is gonna be recorded. You'll get the link in your inbox as you enroll for this course. And again, this course is asynchronous. That means you're doing this on your own time. If you fall behind, don't worry about it. You can catch up, and please reach out if you have any questions. We'll do the best to answer all the questions you have and to connect you with resources or the experts that can help you out. it's so exciting for us to see so many people signed up. 955, I think, was the latest count, and that shows how important the work you guys are all doing is, because we know that journalists want to know how to do things differently, and that that's traditional model of horse race reporting isn't serving all the needs of their community. So we are really happy that you've all signed up for this course, and we're happy to serve you and support your work you're doing.
And I'll just put a plug here. We also want to hear from you as you start to put these skills into practice. We'd really love to hear about what you do, how you do it, and what resulted from doing that. So please stay in touch. I know you're just barely, a third of the or a quarter of the way through, but I don't think we can make that point often enough.
Yes, and we'll send out messages. We'll be in touch after the course finishes, but as you're producing these stories, as you're creating content, as you're tackling some of these tough questions that you've shared with us, like, please send them to us. We want to know what you're producing. We want to know where you're succeeding, where you're having challenges. That's really important for our work. We want to know what the impact is, but we also want to know what else we can do to support you, where you're hitting those roadblocks, because that's why, that's the work we're doing, to support you reaching your goals. So it's really important that you stay in touch and let us know what we can do to support you. Right. Well,
Are you reading another question?
I'm trying to find um and looking for, yeah, I think it seems like that's all the questions that I can find anyway. But yeah, so we can wrap up unless any more questions come up. But in next week, we'll be digging into solutions journalism. For those, I'm curious how many people have heard of solutions journalism that are on this call, or have not heard of it. But we'll dig into solutions journalism. We'll talk to some fantastic practitioners of solutions journalism. This course obviously is focused on elections, but last year, Hugo Balta, publisher of Latino News Network, did a great course breaking down what solutions journalism is. And so that was a year ago. And so we actually interviewed Hugo about what he's been up to for the last year. He's actually translating his course into Spanish and working on some really interesting projects. And he's got some really fascinating thoughts to share. And we talked to some other journalists that are doing some really great reporting. We talked to Natalia Contreras of VoteBeat, who's not covering elections, but she covers democracy and voting in Texas. And so one of the most challenging places you could be covering that, but she's doing a fantastic job. So we talked to her about the insights she's gained. And we have we share a lot of examples of good solutions reporting. We walk you through how to overcome those challenges, where to find evidence, which is a really important key to understand. One of the first steps to doing a solution story is to find evidence. We talk you through where to find that, and really excited to dig into next week and to be back on next week at this time to see how it's going, and seeing what's working for you and where your challenges are.
Yeah, and I will just add that when you're talking about covering the threats to democracy, if you're waiting till election time, that's way too late, right? A lot of this, if you want to address those challenges, really a lot of those decisions and a lot of those policies go in place a lot sooner. So part of what we also want to encourage news organizations to do is to cover democracy as year-round, not just periodically right before the election, because some of the most important decisions and issues and policies happen way, way before that. You probably have something to add to that, Jaisal.
Yeah, absolutely. And democracy doesn't just happen at the ballot box, right? Democracy is a process that your audience can be involved in. Year round, every day, there are ways to get involved. There's public hearings, there's surveys, there's listening sessions, and your role as a journalist doesn't have to be just repeating what politicians are saying. But you can use engagement, use transparency to build a powerful connection with your audience and take those questions to the politicians and hold them accountable. And also just as journalists, we might be really familiar with how voting works, how to register, and how to be engaged in the political process, but our audience might not be. So it's a good opportunity to step back and listen to what your audience, wants to know, and answer what they let them really be in the driver's seat, and guide your reporting and your agenda for democracy and for elections.
Looks like some folks are interested in learning more about solutions journalism, which is great. That's
Cool.
That's what the next module is all about. So
Yeah, we have lots of great resources for you to read, and we'll be back on at the same time next week. And really looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and hearing your questions, and what's working in your community, and what you plan on reporting on after this course. And the cool thing about solutions journalism is that I've never talked to someone who doesn't think that it needs to be done. Like, it's the one thing that I haven't talked to anyone that's disagreed. That's been like, no, solutions journalism, that doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like we need to do solutions journalism. So that's one of those things I think just about everyone can get behind. And also, we have data that we showcase in our, we have research and data we reference in our materials that show that this is what at a time of increased news avoidance, at a time of these multiple crises in journalism, that solutions journalism provides an answer, provides a way to do something different, and to more deeply connect with your audience and your communities at a time when that's becoming harder and harder. And it's not easy, but solutions journalism has been around for a decade. The practice of solutions journalism has been around even longer, and we have resources, we have experience. Like, we love doing this. That's why we work at Solutions Journalism Network, because we really enjoy providing you all with the resources and everything you need to make it work for you.
Okay, Jaisal, I think are we going to stay on till the top of the hour in case there are any more questions, or are we going to finish?
Yeah, I think it's okay to end a little early if there's no more questions. I think I have nothing else to add at the moment.
Yeah, we can talk about solutions journalism all day, but we'll get to that, and we will cover.
We want to save it. Yeah, we don't want to spoil the whole training for. We don't want to spoil the training for next week. It's going to be it's really, really good, and we also don't want to overwhelm you. This week is engagement, so we want to make sure you get through engagement, have a really good foundation for that, and then we'll tackle solutions journalism next week.
Yeah, and I'll just leave. I'm trying to channel Jen a little bit here. I know what she would recommend to you guys is just try something small. Start out, try something. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to take a lot of time and resources when you're strapped for time and resources. Try one thing and then build on that. And again, if you have questions about how to do that one thing, if you have an idea and you want some advice about how to do that one small thing, let us know. We'll get you that advice.
Yes. All right, everybody. I think it's about time for me to get through security and board my flight. But thank you all.
Don't miss your flight, Jaisal.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make sure that doesn't happen. So yeah, thank you all, and hope you all have a great week, and we will catch you next week.
Bye all. Great to see you.